Terrorism Task Force is for the very reason to be that chief's, that department's eyes and ears so that they get the information real time.
The director telling senators he views the attack as domestic terrorism. Neera Tanden has withdrawn her name from consideration to be President Biden's budget director after some senators suggested they were troubled by her earlier political postings on social media. President Biden says a unique arrangement will provide more coronavirus vaccines more quickly.
Two of the largest healthcare and pharmaceutical companies in the world that are usually competitors are working together on the vaccine. Johnson & Johnson and Merck will work together to expand the production of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine.
And the president says that will make it possible to offer inoculations to every adult in the country by Memorial Day. America is listening to Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
State lawmakers in New York have agreed to strip Governor Andrew Cuomo of the emergency powers they granted him early in the coronavirus pandemic. Several still calling for the governor to resign over his handling of nursing home death data and recent allegations of sexual harassment. The House of Representatives preparing to act on a dramatic reshaping of election laws, known as House Bill 1.
The measure allows 16 and 17-year-olds to register to vote and requires early voting. Ballots arriving late would still be good 10 days after Election Day if postmarked on time. The bill federalizes local election responsibilities. That flies in the face of the Constitution, which says it's up to states to assign times, places, and manner of holding elections. Election reform may pass the House, but it's dead in the Senate along with any other voting measure. That's why some fear election disputes in 2020 could be a dress rehearsal for 2022 and 2024.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. 32 crew members are being hoisted from a fishing vessel floundering in high winds and heavy seas in the North Atlantic off the coast of Nova Scotia. The vessel, the Atlantic Destiny, reported a fire on board a few hours ago. The Joint Rescue Task Force says they will get all of the crew members back to shore safely. A celebrity doctor is being credited with saving a man's life at one of the country's busier airports.
Dr. Oz saves a man who went into cardiac arrest at Newark Liberty International Airport. The TV star taking to Twitter to say the man collapsed near him and his family. He and an airport police officer performing CPR. Posting, thankfully the airport had a defibrillator nearby that we were able to use to save his life. The doctor goes on to share a link with details on how to perform CPR, telling followers, as a physician, a human being, it is our responsibility to jump in when there's a medical emergency. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Half a day, this is Honey. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro has you covered this Lenten season. Try their Fisherman's Platter, grilled local catch salad, and their Lobster Pad Capro pasta. Open from Monday through Friday for lunch and dinner. Call 479-2652 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Start the show that way every day. Everybody knows that it introduces a constitutionally oriented conservative radio talk show for which callers are invited to dial 888-8255. You could also post on our Facebook page, and quite often the posts on the Facebook page become important parts of the show. So give it a shot. I always start with Demi Ikotny, which is my backwards play on words. Demi Ikotny literally means press the meat. I turn it around so that it reads meet the press. During this portion of the show, I am occasionally unmercifully critical of the editorial offerings of our two daily papers, sometimes granting extreme praise to the better of the two editorials by inscribing thereon the coveted blue star. And as I've explained before, careers have been made and broken based on the award of blue stars. And if you were in the neighborhood of the editorial boardrooms of either paper on the day that they received the blue star, you could hear the champagne corks popping from outside the building. Today I start out with the usual offering from the Daily News. It's not a local editorial. Kaleo Moylan, when are you going to fix this? The Daily News has been running boilerplate from somewhere else. This is special to USA Today. But it's by Jessica Milligan, director of the Center of Technology and Innovation, and Clyde Wayne Cruz. He's also from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. So neither one of these two Jaspers is from Guam, and what they're writing about is applicable in Guam, but it's not local. But it is a subject I'm somewhat interested in, so I'm going to spend a little time with it here. Protecting free speech. Online anonymity is critical for preserving freedom to dissent. The bipartisan loathing of Section 230, everybody knows what that is, the liability shield that protects online platforms from being legally responsible for what their users post, has some policymakers contemplating an end to user anonymity on social media platforms. This is an effort to avoid the harmful consequences of repealing or curtailing Section 230, while still addressing content moderation criticisms. That's a noble goal, but protecting anonymous speech is critical to the health of our republic. Now, we certainly know that here on Guam. If you wanted to get some action out of a government official, you could write a letter to the government official, and maybe somebody to pay attention to it, maybe somebody wouldn't. But if your letter is anonymous, the media will pick it up and make quite a show out of it. And so the lesson is, if you really want your letter to have some impact here on Guam, do it anonymously. People will pay a lot more attention to it that way. As the TV talking heads say, it was an anonymous letter. And then a couple of therefores follow after that. Therefore, they, meaning the letter writer, must have been intimidated, or they were fearful of losing their jobs. They're fearful of retaliation. The great deplatforming surrounding the storming of the U.S. Capitol, as it becomes clearer to many that revoking or reducing Section 230 protections for online platforms will lead to a degraded user experience online, barriers to entry for potential competitors to the tech giants, and more, not less, content being taken down online. Policymakers are looking for an alternative solution. Last month, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, who sends out a newsletter over the name Ron John, tweeted in reference to the Section 230 battle, one solution may be to end user anonymity on social media platforms. Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana, has announced plans to introduce legislation that bans anonymity online. The option does not make it easier to find and sue the third-party speaker himself, instead of altering the liability protections of the platforms. But banning anonymous speech on social media platforms and elsewhere on the internet would be a big mistake. The United States has long and important tradition of anonymous speech. Founding fathers Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison advocated for ratifying the U.S. Constitution and the Federalist Papers. They did not sign Federalist Number 10 or Federalist 51 with their real names, but with Publius. Since then, the Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that anonymous speech is protected by the First Amendment. In today's cancel culture, this protection of namelessness, or using a pseudonym against the tyranny of the majority, is as important as ever. Political dissidents and those of minority, sexual, ethnic, or cultural groups often benefit from anonymity online. Now, as is always, it is the most unpopular and controversial speech that needs protections. The dangers of curtailing anonymous speech are self-evident, but private platforms themselves can choose to require authentication from their users. Those platforms are private property, and the terms of service are a matter of preference for their owners and also for their customers. In fact, Facebook official policy states that the name of your profile should be the name that your friends call you in everyday life. I know a couple people who wouldn't be able to do that because it would be names that you aren't supposed to use on the media. This name should also appear in an ID or document from our ID list, which includes various forms of government identifications. Facebook goes on to caution, pretending to be anything or anyone isn't allowed. Facebook's policy is not without its shortcomings. There are controversies about groups being unfairly targeted for suspected use of fake names such as Native Americans, Elizabeth Warren, or Pocahontas. The verification policy has also troubled those in the transgender community who have adopted pseudonyms. Facebook has made attempts to mitigate these harms to the various satisfaction of their critics. Successful or not, these private experimental efforts have no implications for political liberty. There is a crucial difference between private solutions and government dictates. Private policies are voluntary for users that they can take their online selves elsewhere. A government prohibition on anonymity will offer no such exit. Political anonymity and commercial anonymity are not the same thing, and the distinction requires better appreciation. Over the coming tumultuous period of content moderation, policymakers should allow the private sphere experimentation necessary to cope with today's lack of online authentication and proceed with minimal interference. In the meantime, government should not strip us of the possibility of anonymity online. The benefits of anonymous communication are vital to the preservation of political liberty here and across the globe. The outlawing of anonymous communications is sure worse than a disease. I don't think I'd put my name to this editorial.
It's fantasy.
Yeah. Well,
but I just got that.
Yeah, but these are high-powered dudes in Centers for Innovation and Technology and free market think tank and things like that. So,
I don't really think anonymous people are being targeted. I think people who are definitely naming themselves as conservatives or a certain party are the ones being targeted.
Yeah, and well, their point is that people want to be able to say those things without being targeted. They want to be able to stand up and say, my name is, and I'm a conservative. It's Janella writ large is what it amounts to. The Janella syndrome. Okay, and then the Post has an interesting take on what's going on with our trip to the Supreme Court. The Post says the Navy can do the right thing, reimburse Gov Guam's cost of dump cleanup, landfill development. Next month, the Supreme Court of the United States will hear oral arguments in a Guam case. The High Court accepts less than 1% of the cases it's asked to review, or only 70 cases out of 7,000 to 8,000 petitions filed each term from across the country. It's a big deal for the government of Guam that the Supreme Court agreed to hear Gov Guam's case against the U.S. government. And a few days ago, I explained why. It's not that the Supreme Court is saying, we've got to take a case from Guam. We haven't had one for quite a while, and you know the culture and cockfighting and all that stuff. No, the case really has very little to do with Guam. It has everything to do with a couple of complicated points of law as to when a couple of statutes of limitation run. And this problem has arisen in other circuits. And the Supreme Court, to start out with, Supreme Court is not an error-correcting court. So if you have a case that, where you feel like the trial court really screwed up, and the Court of Appeals really screwed up, pointing this out to the Supreme Court may not get you there, because the Supreme Court is not an error-correcting court. It has more of a policy function. One of the things it does is reconcile conflicts among the circuits. Another thing it does is look at its old precedents to see if they're still valid. It kind of rides herd on the Congress with respect to constitutionality, et cetera, but it is not an error-correcting court. But the editorial says this is a big deal for government of Guam. The Supreme Court agreed to hear Gov Guam's case against the government. This is believed to be the first case involving Guam that the Supreme Court has agreed to hear in more than 15 years, and that was the Bond case, if you recall that, Jose. How we calculate debt as a limitation on our ability to limit bonds. Doug Moylan was the Attorney General that initiated it. The style of the case winds up as Limtiaco versus somebody, because She replaced Moylan, but it was actually Moylan's case. At issue is Gov Guam's efforts to seek the Navy payment of part of one of the enormous costs to close Orda dump and develop the Ladzone landfill. That's true, but that's not what the case is about. Gov Guam is suing the federal government and the Navy specifically for $160 million. Gov Guam states that in building the Orda landfill, the Navy in the 1940s omitted basic environmental safeguards. Outlined at the bottom and uncapped at the top, the Orda dump absorbed rain and surface water which percolated through the site and mixed with waste. This toxic mixture would flow into the Lone Fit River and ultimately make its way to the Pacific Ocean at Pago Bay, according to Gov Guam. Throughout the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the Navy used the Orda dump for disposal of munitions and chemicals, according to Gov Guam's argument. According to the District Court of Guam, in a prior decision, what was once a valley became a 280-foot mountain of trash. And I described that same phenomenon yesterday. We went through the valley of trash to Mount Trashmore in 50 years. After the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sued Gov Guam for polluting the Lone Fit River in the ocean, Gov Guam was forced to borrow about $202 million in bond money to pay for the proper and safe closure of the Orda dump and the development of the Ladzone landfill. Now a number of states and territories, including, and there's a list of states and territories that have expressed support of Guam's case. It's sort of the Levin Camacho syndrome. Apparently a lot of states' attorneys general don't have much to do, so they file amicus briefs in other cases and invite others to join their class actions. States have an interest in ensuring the U.S. government pays its fair share, according to the written brief in support of Gov Guam's case. When Gov Guam met a setback in an appeals court, the states argued it allowed U.S. government to dodge liability. That's what happens when you when you don't comply with the statute of limitations. The guy over here in the lazy boy chair would say, yeah, they won it on a technicality, the statute of limitations. For Gov Guam, as the cost of running the landfill and the annual payments on the Ladzone landfill debt continue to mount, island residents are facing the prospect of higher trash fees. The Department of Defense, which in recent years has touted its environmental stewardship, has a responsibility to do it right by Guam and its people. Well, I think that's what the Supreme Court will ultimately, or the judicial system will ultimately determine. The Post goes on to say, instead of fighting the legal battle, the military can steer a path where the effort should be focused on getting Congress to appropriate funds to reimburse Guam for the cleanup costs at ORDOT, the future maintenance of the capped former ORDOT dump, and for Ladzone landfill to expand. Gov Guam isn't asking a whole lot if we think of how the ORDOT dump started and which side of the island has been helping to fill it up. Well, there's everything that the editorial says is correct, but people will have a misunderstanding here when they read this editorial, and they'll think, boy, that Supreme Court, they better rule for Guam and make the Navy pay. And if 9 justices on the Supreme Court come out and say that appellant government of Guam won, you know how much money that will put in the Treasury? Not 1 nickel. Because this case went up on appeal, on an interlocutory appeal. So it's a long time before we'll ever get to the end of this case. Now, if you are a attorney working for the Navy, and I think it's probably the Department of Justice that is handling this, not some Navy lawyer, one of the things that you don't do is you don't pay out money when you don't have to. You don't make ex gratia payments. So if you're assigned a case and you look at it, let's say that you look at this case and you say, yeah, wow, the military really screwed Guam, dumping all their trash in that dump all those years. And then when the EPA got on Guam, the military never volunteered to help clean up or bear any of the costs. That was really wrong. So I think we should. I think that the United States government should write a check to the government of Guam. Before he does that, that lawyer is going to say, we've been sued by the government of Guam. First thing, what defenses do I have? That's the first thing the lawyer looks at. What defenses do I have? And if you follow these things along, you'll know that ordinarily it goes like this. Plaintiff files a complaint. Defendant files a motion to dismiss. That's the ordinary course of events. So if the Supreme Court decides that Guam was too late, that it didn't follow the statute of limitations on its two claims in accordance with the way the Supreme Court ruled that they should have been followed, then how much does the United States government owe Guam? Tons. So I think the government of Guam's argument might have been a lot stronger before this case got to the Supreme Court. The question is, why didn't we make the argument? We've had a delegate in Congress all these years. Where was the bill introduced in Congress appropriating X amount of money to the government of Guam to reimburse, et cetera, et cetera? I don't think that bill ever got introduced. Now, it's not too late to do it now, except the Congress is so busy giving away money for other things. But if the Supreme Court rules against Guam on the statute of limitations argument, Guam's bargaining position becomes considerably weaker. Okay, fair editorial, no blue star. And let's go to the card. Okay, I got some program notes here, but let's take a short break, and we'll come back to the card.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Hey! Big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community, yet national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So there we go. Here are my program notes for March 3rd. Start out with CLTC, Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And what did you call the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, Jose?
It is not the Chamorro Land Transfer Commission.
Okay.
Contrary to popular belief.
CLTC Chairman Regis is, quote, looking into Hattick Gate at the CLTC. So we're going to see if Pika Feharan left any whitewash behind. She used an awful lot of it during the time that she was chairman, but there may still be some left over. The CCU takes on BJ on the double pay issues, and the rest of the program summary has been on here for quite a while. I've got some items that have been on the card for quite some time. I might actually get to the Sabina and Tello show today. Well, we'll see. So I've got John Regis versus Jack Hattick, CCU versus BJ, Rory versus BJ, the courts versus the Wuhan virus. Yeah, I see what happened here. My card doesn't read as well as it should. Okay, so let's start out with John Regis versus Jack Hattick in something that I have labeled Hattiggate, Hattigate, Hattiggate. And a little background here, you'll recall that last year, the Attorney General said that, well, starting out with this proposition, there is a waiting list of eligible people who want Chamorro Land Trust leases. And the construction of that lease line began in 1995. And the way the line proceeds is it goes in numerical order. The earlier you signed up, the sooner your number comes up. And we found out during the Pika Feharan era that people were swapping places in the line. So if I were back there in 1995 and I had a cousin who signed up in, say, 2001, and I wanted my cousin to get the land, I could swap places with my cousin. And this was a regular practice at the CCU. The only problem with it was just dead wrong and illegal. And the Attorney General so ruled. So this caused a lot of confusion and problems at the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. But I think that almost everybody who knew anything about the Chamorro Land Trust Commission knew that line swapping was not possible. It was not proper. So then we had a situation at the Chamorro Land Trust Commission meeting where a land agent named Lydia Tellu came to the commission and very impassionately said, Jack Hattick made me do something I didn't want to do. And Lydia said, everybody knows there's no line swapping, but Jack Hattick wanted me to write up this land agent's report recommending the land swap so that a 1995 place in the line could swap his place with his 1996 wife. And as an interesting footnote, the husband wasn't even qualified for his 1995 slot. So it was clearly bogus, clearly illegal. And Tellu told Hattick that, we can't do that. It's how we got in trouble, all that trouble last year. And Lydia said that Hattick had coerced her, etc. But then Hattick came on in defense of himself and said he didn't really coerce her. He just took her report and added in some recommendations himself. And I have the report here. And went through this a couple days ago. The report, it's the heading, Chamorro Land Trust Commission Land Agent Staff Report, Switch and Transfer Lease List. Original applicant, Gerald Lee Hodges. Former lessee, Katrina Bora Hodges. So this paper is a land agent transfer report. Hattick said that he added to the recommendations. This is how the recommendations read. Recommendations, motion to approve the transfer of the application and application rights of Gerald Lee Hodges to Katrina Bora Hodges. Line swapping. Motion to award a residential lease lot 5219, to Katrina Bora Hodges with the following stipulations. So Hattick confessed in a public meeting on TV that he added this to Lydia's report. And I went through the legal definition of forgery the first time we went through this, and this is forgery. So Hattick confessed to forgery in a public meeting before the Land Trust Commission. We wonder I wonder what's going to happen there. Is he maybe his lunch hour will be shortened by 10 minutes or something like that, huh? So, and then Hattick said some really dumb things. He said, well, yeah, we knew it was a problem, but we thought we'd recommend it, and if it works, so be it. And if not, at least we'll know for sure. And my ever-popular producer here, before the show started, gave me a real good example that I could use to illustrate the point.
What a guy.
Yeah, what a guy, yeah. So Jose said, that's like saying, I'm going to take my gun down to the bank and use it to make a withdrawal. And if it works, fine. But if it doesn't, well, at least I'll know. You don't get to be the producer of Tall Tales for nothing.
I think of the smart ones.
Uh-huh.
That sound really idiotic.
We're talking about the other guy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, I mean, you could use your nose to work with this one. Your nose would give you the exact right answer. This whole thing stinks to high heaven. It really does. So it looks like, Hattick knew. Hattick probably didn't figure that Lydia would be brassy enough to come and blow the whistle on him before the commission. He figured, well, I have this kind of imaginary scene in my head here. Mr. Hodges, you're not eligible. Your wife is, so maybe you could swap positions with her. And this hasn't worked very well in the past, but I'll tell you what, I'll write it up and I'll submit it. The commission is new. We got a lot of new members, and we'll submit it to the commission, and maybe it'll work. If it does, fine. If not, we'll try something else. I don't know if that's what happened, or that's just my imagination, but why would Jack Hattick do such a dumb thing? Probably didn't figure that Lydia would have the spunk to come and rat him out in public, which is exactly what she did and exactly what he deserved. Okay, so there were a couple of news stories on this, and when this came before the commission stopped it dead in its tracks, would not entertain any more lessees that day, and that was the end of the meeting. Okay, now, I made reference to Pika Feheran in the program notes, wondering if any of her whitewash is left over, because when Pika Feheran was the chairman of the commission, this line swapping ran rampant. And you may recall that the director of land management, who at that time was running the Land Trust Commission, made a deal with Public Works to build a road to some of the lands up in Barragata Heights, some prime Chamorro Land Trust property that went to some Manakilu, some important people. And because of that road, people started paying attention. And then we got into this, and we found out about the line swapping. We found out that Michael Bora signed one of the leases in both places. He signed as a director and as the lessee with a power of attorney. Land agents were tipping off their relatives as to how to go about it, etc. It was really, really bad. In addition, the statute says that land trust leases are to be signed by the chairman of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. But the director and the director of land management, even the deputy director of land management, was signing these leases. So the attorney general said, these are all void, but they're voidable. They could be rehabilitated. So I'm wondering, what is the chairman of the Land Trust Commission doing when all of these leases are being signed? You would assume that if a person is appointed to a board or commission, the first thing he does, he gets online. Excuse me. Whoa, I'm screwing up here. The first thing they do is they go online and they read the organic statute for their agency. And if you're the chairman, you look and find out, well, I'm the chairman. Oh, it says I'm supposed to sign the leases. But, you know, there's a stack of these leases that had not been signed by the chairman. And then there were the swaps and the insider trading, what I would label as insider trading, where people who work for the commission had relatives who got special treatment. Pika Farron said, we're going to do an investigation of ourselves. They did an investigation, and a couple months later, she came back and proudly announced, we've finished our investigation. Everything's okay. No one did anything wrong. Yeah. Now, there was probably a 55-gallon drum of whitewash there that she had to use to whitewash this whole investigation. So I was wondering if John Regis is going to do a real investigation, or he's going to call up Pika and say, hey, where's the rest of that whitewash? I'm supposed to be looking into something. I need some whitewash. So here's how the story goes. Following the contentious meeting in February, during which a land agent said she felt the administrator coerced her into including a transfer request for a land applicant, Chairman John F. Regis Jr. said he's meeting with the agency staff and will be developing a report for the commission. Now, this story misses the really important point here. The coercion of the land agent is important, but not as important as the forgery on the part of Jack Haddock. Land agent Lydia Talou told CLTC commissioners in February that she felt CLTC administrator Jack Haddock was asking her to violate the law with a recommendation to transfer application rights from a husband to his wife. The case would have been a switch and transfer. However, Guam's former attorney general opined that switched or transferred leases are considered null and void. Haddock apologized to Talou and commission, but said he did not force her to make changes to her report. Instead, he admitted to adding his own recommendations to Talou's report. There it is again. Haddock reasoned that the transfer option should be explored, and if it's not possible, then the commission will know. I was going to go to the bank today, but I couldn't find my 1911-45. So I figured if I didn't have my pistol, there's no sense going to the bank because I couldn't make a withdrawal. But if I had, at least I would have known. Earlier in the meeting, CLTC legal counsel determined that the commission had no authorization to approve transfers while the original applicant is still alive. Haddock explained the transfer requests were appearing before the commission because there was no clear written guidance at the time, and also simply as part of working with their constituents. Working with their, seeing if we can find some way to get around the law here. No clear guidance other than the Attorney General's opinion. Running their requests through legal counsel for review, but ultimately letting the commission to decide. In other words, we'll put it, we know it's not right, but we'll send it into the commission. We'll try to fababa the commission here, is what we're going to try to do. After legal counsel provided its recommendation and the commission appeared to agree, Haddock said he was understanding that no more transfer requests would be prepared. The guy's got a mind like a steel trap. He's caught with his whole hand jammed down inside the cookie jar, right? And after he gets caught, he says, well, I have a feeling that from now on, I'm going to have to get my cookies somewhere else, not from this cookie jar. However, Talu's statements later in the meeting created enough concern that the commission tabled all constituent matters for that day to look further into the situation. Regis was reluctant to label his meetings with staff an investigation. He said, "I've got to contact Mrs. Fairan to see if she has any whitewash left over." From there, if it does deal with the director, God. If he confessed to you in an open meeting, Mr. Regis. If it does deal with the director, an employee of the agency, I'll be working with our legal counsel just to understand what will be necessary next steps. Well, you could call the police and report a forgery. Right now, I'm just meeting with the land agents to focus on making sure these staff reports will be clear. And secondly, again, of course, discussing the issue at hand. And if they have any other additional feedback, comments, concerns, or issues to share with me, once I put that all together in a report, I'm going to get the agency's legal counsel's help and support. Wow. Moving forward, staff reports will be collaborative efforts, as were collaborative reports, but the administrative recommendations and comments will be separately labeled, if any, according to Regis. Well, that's going to make it harder to slide things by. It's too early, it's too early to presume there will be any disciplinary action, he said. We don't know if he did anything wrong.
The fact that they stopped at that one tells me that there were more like it afterwards.
Exactly.
This is not the only one.
It's too early to presume there will be any disciplinary action. The work now includes reassuring staff that their work is appreciated, gathering broad feedback, lifting up the rugs in the office, and using our brooms to sweep improper applications under the rug, including addressing what happened in February and then reviewing the matter with counsel for further guidance, he reiterated. Regis still needs to meet with a couple more employees, but said he should be able to complete his work and meet with a legal counsel before the meeting of the commission on March 18. Mr. Regis, we have a 90-day rule. Don't take too long, or the decision will be made for you. When asked if the incident affected his trust in Haddock, Regis said it has affected how he will be addressing matters with the administrator and the agency. And being, a little bit more, giving it a little bit more security into the matters at hand. But again, the director serves a big purpose and a big role within the agency. And I'm one to always give everyone a fair shake. Until things go awry, then it will impact certain aspects of those working and being with the agency, Regis said. I think, again, at face value, it may be perceived that we've lost trust. How could that possibly be? Give the guy a break. What is it that we never do on Tall Tales, Jose? Give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, that's don't ever try that on Tall Tales. And what giving someone the benefit of the doubt means is that that what he represents as facts are not completely believable, but you're going to let him go anyhow. I think, again, at face value, it may be perceived that we've lost trust. However, I think going through these interviews with our staff and our team will continue to bring more light into how things will be addressed, or how I will be addressing the agency as a whole, along with my commission members. Just please don't be like the last commissioners, Mr. Regis. You have a serious problem. The only way to solve the serious problem is to solve it, not to tiptoe around it not to be a nice guy, not to bend over backwards to be fair, not to give Haddock the benefit of the doubt, etc., after the performance that he put on in front of you at a CLTC meeting. Okay, let's take a short break.
Sunday brunch at Mezcla Bistro in Hagåtña is back.
Come and enjoy Mezcla's true taste of Guam.
At only $28.95, enjoy your Sunday with your friends and family with their free-flowing house mimosa or house draft beer. Open for 2 seatings at 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Let Mezcla serve up your favorite local foods. Call them at 479-2652
or 479-2653 to book a reservation. Limited seating available.
Mezcla reminds everyone to be safe and stay sanitized. Sunday brunch at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Make every day epic. The new Samsung Galaxy S21 is here. The Samsung Galaxy S21 offers the highest resolution of photos and videos on a smartphone, which makes it perfect for those TikTok dances or class projects. With a sleek new look, striking design, and a battery that goes all day and beyond. Samsung Galaxy S21 is epic in every way. Come into GTA today and experience the new Samsung Galaxy S21 and let GTA help you make every day epic. GTA, we start with you.
Okay, next item on the card. CCU versus BJ. And this is an article from the PDN. CCU discusses audit report on pandemic double pay. You're going to need your Law and Order notebooks for this one, Jose. It was unclear how much to pay utilities workers during the government's pandemic shutdown last spring, so the Guam Power Authority and the Guam Waterworks Authority gave some employees double pay, just in case, agency general managers told the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. Department of Administration personnel rules require double pay for government employees who are required to work when there is a public emergency that requires their agency to be closed to the public. However, an executive order issued by the governor last April states employees who were required to work during the pandemic shutdown should be paid an additional wage of 10 to 25% based on their level of public exposure. All other government employees were required to stay home earning regular pay. The Office of Public Accountability in January issued an audit report noting GPA and GWA were the only government agencies that decided to give double pay instead of following the pay guidelines in the executive order. Main reason being that the guidelines in the executive order didn't exist at that time. That had a lot to do with it. And I also have to add something here. GPA and GWA were the only ones that did the double pay. The old saying is that sometimes leadership means marching to the drumbeat even when everybody else is out of step. Maybe GPA and GWA were right. The governor was wrong. But I'm going to have to do a complete wrap on this. I've done it before, but I think it's important that there be a fair amount of understanding on this. The Office of Accountability, the two agencies spent $2.5 million in additional pay as a result. The report states GWA employees also were given $500,000 in compensatory time in lieu of extra pay. The additional pay was in effect from mid-March until mid-May, when the governor reopened government offices to the public. The OPA asked the Attorney General's office to review how the power and water agencies applied extra pay due to potential violations of legal statutes. The CCU discussed the audit findings for the first time during its meeting last week. Commission member Simon Sanchez said the OPA questioned the choices made by the utilities agencies, while noting there was an unresolved conflict as to which policy should apply. I don't think so. I want to assure ratepayers that both our management team and our legal team and everyone involved who looked at this thing, Sanchez said. Even the OPA is admitting there were conflicts. and pay policy that were not resolved. GWA General Manager Miguel Bordazzo said the pay policy was unclear because the governor in executive order did not suspend the existing personnel rule that requires double pay. Even though the governor has authority to do that, there was no specific suspension of that, Bordazzo said. He said the administration, although asked, did not clarify which pay policy to follow. And the reason for that was, if you recall, the governor was gaslighting the workers at that time. Every worker who actually had to go to work in the line agencies, all of them were thinking, I'm going to get double pay for this. And the governor didn't break the bad news to them until July. And then it was an, oh, by the way, sort of thing from her deputy chief of staff. Bordazzo said, my decision was to follow the existing personnel rules and regulations, because if we follow that, we still met the intent of what was in the executive order. We exceeded it. It was administered in the same manner that it had been administered for previous emergencies. Granted, the public health emergency for the pandemic was different from natural disasters like typhoons, Bordazzo said. But the application of the rule was the same, all the conditions and criteria being the same. GPA General Manager John Benavente said the power agency followed the same policy that would be applied during other emergencies such as a typhoon. He said he was concerned that adopting a different pay policy could result in an unplanned payroll liability for the agency. I followed the old practices and we complied. I believe that the general managers acted prudently because they followed the law as they saw it. CCU Chairman Joseph Duenas said, following that remark by saying, don't send me any sunshine law requests about this matter. I won't answer it. CCU member Francis Santos asked the agencies to draft a resolution for the Commission's March meeting so the Commissioners can endorse management's actions, although Commission members noted the agency managers had the authority to make those decisions. The court of public opinion has basically said we did wrong, Santos said. We just need to decide once and for all. Let's get this resolved at our level, because that's really ultimately our decision to make. Well, is it? The CCU is the elected policy-making body for power and water. We've just got to say this is the route we want to take, Santos said. I don't like employees right now thinking, did we make a mistake? I've noticed that kind of an attitude amongst the members of this. It can't be. We don't make mistakes on the open government law and giving raises to lawyers. No, that can't be. Lawyer, can you come up with some good language to help me get away from around this?
We were in that meeting too.
Yeah. Okay, let's break for the big halftime show here.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A warning there could be another assault. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Sources at the U.S. Capitol Police say they've just received an intelligence bulletin warning that militia groups may attempt another storming of the Capitol on Thursday.
Capitol Police did put out a statement saying they are aware of concerning information and intelligence pertaining to March 4th, and they've taken immediate steps to enhance security and staffing for a number of days, including March 4th.
That's Fox 5's Lindsay Watts. The Constitution originally set March 4th as Inauguration Day. It was moved up to January 20th by a constitutional amendment in 1933. FBI Director Christopher Wray says they're still tracking down some of the January 6th rioters.
The FBI is committed to seeing this through, no matter how many people it takes or how long or the resources we need to get it done. because as citizens, in a sense, we're all victims of the January 6th assault, and the American people deserve nothing less.
Director Wray insisting the FBI did share with various federal agencies their intelligence prior to the riot. President Biden stepping up the country's coronavirus vaccination timeline.
The president says a collaboration between Merck and Johnson & Johnson will mean more vaccine, not by the end of July as first thought, but
by the end of May. That's progress.
The president also held to his promise to open schools by treating school workers as essential employees.
Fox's Janelle Scott reports the federal pharmacy program will prioritize teacher vaccinations. State of Texas dropping coronavirus restrictions next week, including the mask mandate and limits on business activity.
Too many Texans have been sidelined from employment opportunities. Too many small business owners have struggled to pay their bills. This must end.
Governor Greg Abbott, America is listening to Fox News.
The vaccine is officially here, and we aren't just talking about the COVID vaccine, but a financial vaccine at Bank Pacific. We may not be doctors, but we can help you with your financial health. Whether to take advantage of today's crazy low rates, or just a local bank that has your back. At Bank Pacific, we want to help make 2021 your best year yet. Because for 66 years, where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Old social media posts have canceled President Biden's choice to be budget director.
Neera Tanden had been under fire because of tweets she sent out attacking members of both parties. Getting confirmed as head of the Office of Management and Budget looks shaky as several Republicans and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said they wouldn't support her. So she sent a letter to President Biden withdrawing her nomination, saying she didn't want to be a distraction to his other priorities. The president issued a statement saying he'd find her another job in his administration. Tanden had called Republican Senator Susan Collins the worst and attacked Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. In Washington, Jill Nato, Fox News.
The Kremlin says sanctions leveled by the Biden administration over the attempted poisoning of opposition leader Alexei Navalny amount to a hostile anti-Russian lunge. They're promising to respond with sanctions of their own. America's infrastructure has scored near failing grades for deteriorating roads, public transit, and storm water systems. The American Society of Civil Engineers blaming years of inaction from the federal government and is calling for big, bold relief. Oh, the books you will sell. Dr. Seuss fans are responding to news that 6 of the author's books will no longer be published with their wallets.
Cancel culture famously caught up to the iconic children's book author this week with a company that oversees his estate announcing it would stop publishing 6 titles it claims portrays people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. But now Dr. Seuss has 13 of the top 20 best-selling books in the U.S., according to Amazon. 4 of them are titles that Dr. Seuss Enterprises says it will discontinue publishing. The surge in sales reflect a desire by fans to get copies of the books before they become unavailable. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Mezcal Bistro welcomes you this Lenten season with some of your favorite seafood specials, house-made especially for you. Try our fisherman's platter, fish tacos, grilled local catch salad, spicy garlic butter shrimp, candied salmon, and even our creamy lobster padka prau pasta. Don't forget to ask about our Lau Lau Sa Island seafood purse. You will not want to miss this limited-time seafood special, open from Monday through Saturday for lunch and dinner in Agana. Call 479-2652 for reservations. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Howdy, folks. KFC's Colonel Sanders here. The largest selection of your seafood savories are back at KFC this Lent season. popcorn shrimp, the wasabi fish sandwich, shrimp and crab Kellogg's wrap, and my personal favorite, KFC shrimp burger. Or treat the family with my breaded shrimp, fish fillets, and the seafood twister. The Colonel's famous original recipe, extra crispy and grilled chicken, are always available too. KFC, your place for less. It's finger-licking good.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services.
Okay, here we are, another big halftime show that we all enjoy so much. We are now in the second half, and the second half of the week here on Tall Tales. And I'm right in the middle of an item on the card called CCU versus BJ, the public auditor. And what we're talking about is the power and water utilities paying some of their employees double pay at the beginning of the Wuhan virus emergency. Some were told to stay home, and they stayed home with pay. Those who actually came to work were given double pay. BJ gigged them in the audit, pointing out that they were the only two agencies that paid double pay. This is a complicated story, and there's not a whole lot of good faith in the story from the executive branch, but what it deals with is interpretation of the law. So starting out with this proposition, as a general principle, even if the law is really stupid, we're all better off complying with a stupid law than ignoring a stupid law. And here's my clearest example. When you're driving on the highway, you pull up to an intersection and there's a traffic signal there. And the traffic signal has red, yellow, and green lights. So when you pull up to the light, if the light is red, what do?
Just stop.
And if it's green?
You go.
This is stupid. This makes no sense at all. Because red is an action color, right? It makes you want to go. Green is calm and cool and kind of just stay where you are. So the colors of the lights are just wrong. Red should be go, and green should be stop. That's the way it ought to be. I mean, if they had any sense when they did this. So I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to show them. When I come to a traffic signal, if that light is red, I'm going to speed right on through. And when I get to the next one, if it's green, I'll stop. Where's that horn of mine, Jose? This is a graphic example of the reason that we should obey the law, even if we think the law is stupid. Okay, the law that the two utilities followed is a stupid law. No getting around it. And I will explain why it's stupid. First of all, it's not a statute, it's a regulation. It's a Department of Administration rule that applies to the entire government. It would not apply to power and water except for the fact that at the beginning of the CCU, they adopted the Government of Guam personnel rules and regulations for their own rules and regulations. Otherwise, this wouldn't apply. So they could change this, and they ought to. But this is what the rule said. 8.406, natural disasters and other emergency conditions. A, excused absence with pay and without charge to leave shall be granted to employees when natural disasters or other emergency conditions create unsafe working conditions. B, excused absence for natural disaster or other emergency conditions may be granted only when there has been an official proclamation of the hazardous conditions by executive order. So far we got it. Or an equivalent announcement by the governor. C, when the governor declares a state of emergency, the appointing authority shall determine whether the affected facilities or portions thereof, which are located in the area covered by the executive order, are to be closed. Power, water. C1, except for those employees determined by the appointing authority to be necessary for providing essential services, employees shall be released from duty with pay without charge to leave for the period the facility is closed. So at the Power Authority, I expect that the linemen were still out there working. Wuhan virus or no Wuhan virus. And the same with some of the guys at the Water Authority. 2, those employees required to remain on duty to provide essential services shall be paid at double the regular rate or compensatory leave credits for the hours worked during the period the facility is closed and the other employees are on excused leave. That's what the rule says. I think it's an absolutely stupid rule. And when I first opined on this, I think it is a reflection of the draftsman's sense of barnyard equity. There's no justice in here, no real equity. The thinking being this, well, you know, a lot of those guys get paid just to stay home. And then other guys got to go to work. So it's not fair that some guys get paid to stay home and others got to go to work. So they should get the same amount of money that the stay-homes get, and then they should also get paid for working. And I've pointed out a million times, when you start out with a proposition that some people can stay home and still get paid, if that's the base of your policy, you're going to wind up with some really crappy results, and that's exactly what's happened here. So that's what happened. So the two general managers looked at this and said, it's pretty clear what we're supposed to do. And they did it. And they'd done it before in typhoons. This was designed for typhoons, and it's happened many times before. Okay, and we get into the duplicity of the governor. Now, when the government shut down and we had people staying home and others coming into work, everybody knew that the ones that came to work were going to get double pay. Remember how do you prove something? Well, there are several different methods, but one way is by saying everybody knows that, right? Everybody knew that there'd be that double pay. And patience lasted for quite a while, and then there was some grumbling. When the heck are we going to get our double pay here? Until finally, at the end of July, the governor's acting chief of staff, John Jr. Calvo, said on a talk show, there won't be any double pay. We're not paying double pay. And it was hard to squeeze this out of all of the payers, but the burn was this. The burn notice was this, that we haven't closed the government, therefore there will be no double pay. So the government never paid any double pay to anybody. So there's a really good argument here that the governor and the line agencies are in violation of 8.406. And then, of course, we all remember the mad rush to the legislature to introduce bills to give everybody double pay. Tina Rose Munya Barnes, the speaker, called a special session. She said that the 3 bills that would provide for double pay needn't have public hearings. She made her certificate of emergency. Of course, one of the bills was hers. And they went to the floor the next day, whereupon Joe San Augustine said, "Oh, I move to adjourn the next Friday so we can have public hearing on these bills." This is just a horror story. This whole thing is a horror story. Now, in the meantime, the governor cranks out an executive order. I don't remember the number of it. I don't think anybody, it's kind of like Brooklyn. No one knows the executive order is true and true.
Which stack?
Yeah. So the governor comes up with an executive order, and there's a sliding scale, 10, 15, and 25%. 25% is the one is for folks who come in contact with infected folks. 10%, a 10% pay differential is for those who can remain upright and alternate feet through an entire shift. So she puts that in place. Now, I was firing off FOIAs at that time asking, does the sliding scale apply on top of the double pay? You know, figuring that maybe they didn't know about the double pay or whatever, and I didn't get anything very satisfactory back, and I was convinced that they didn't know what they were doing. This was complicated, or perhaps backed up by the fact that the governor can't pay money out of the Treasury based on an executive order, even if she is sure in her heart that it's the least she could do. The law is very clear. We have certifying officers and all kinds of mechanisms. You don't pay money out of the Treasury just because you think it's a good idea. So where did the governor, get the authority to pay this money out on this sliding scale? And then, of course, as Maget Berdadzu said, the executive order never mentioned the double pay, and that's because the governor didn't want to talk about the double pay. So to further complicate matters, the public auditor, when he audited the CARES Act spending, said that found that apparently the governor used the rule in Wong versus Kamina to pay the sliding scale hazard pay. Wong versus Kamina is a 1978 case. Now, I actually have the case. I'm not pulling a Talina Nelson here. I actually have the case. Decided by the district court that says if there is an appropriation from the federal treasury that doesn't require local matching and has no requirements for the local government, then the governor can spend it however she wants. And that was her basis for the 10, 15, 25%. Maybe, maybe not, but it's a colorable argument. But it didn't have anything to do with the Power Authority and the Water Authority because they're autonomous agencies and her executive orders don't reach them. So, BJ, this is a false conflict here. It wasn't a matter of which one should they have done. They followed the law, and Simon Sanchez came on the program here and said that finally we did it for a couple of months and then we just decided not to do it anymore. We knew that somebody might sue us, but so far nobody sued us. So, there isn't a conflict between the executive order and the personnel rules and regulations. And just like a prudent driver stops on a red light, even if he doesn't think it makes much sense, I think that's what the two managers in this case did. They followed the law. I wonder if they could whisper in some of the board members' ears about
I was just thinking the same thing.
Hey, you guys, even if you don't like the law, follow the law like we did. On a sunshine law request, just follow the law.
It's pretty clear.
Yeah. So I think the CCU, again, took a bad rap on this whole thing, and it's unfortunate. And I would have thought that BJ would have been a little bit more sharp in his delineation between the 8.406 hazard double pay and the governor's executive order, the different sources, the different operations, the different legalities involved. There's still a suit pending on the double pay. I don't know what the current progress of it is. The unfortunate denouement of this whole thing is that no one has taken the time to go back and repeal 8.406, the personnel rules, and to enact an appropriate statute to deal with emergencies where some people work and some people don't work. Not starting out with a proposition, well, if there's an emergency, everybody goes home and they all get paid. That's not where you start. I did a little thinking about this, and it occurs to me that what you would need to do is you'd have a situation where in a territorial emergency, some employees could be assigned to accomplish their duties at their dwelling. And this would be a chore for management, but those who do paper shuffling, etc., would have various paper shuffling projects that they could do at home and using email and digital communications, etc., be productive while they're at home. And those that don't do paper shuffling, again, it would be a challenge for management that these people would do something. Perhaps there are training manuals that they could read, tests on the training manuals, etc. But to get over this idea, oh, there's a typhoon, Gov Guam stays home and gets paid for that. And if you go to work, you get double pay. But I haven't seen anybody take this on. And I haven't seen anybody take on the governor's executive order, although the governor said it's over now. And then we had the sad situation of the people at the Department of Corrections who didn't get their 10, 15, and 25%. And the story in the paper said, well, the CARES Act money is gone, so we're looking for a source to pay. Well, if BJ's theory is correct, you can't find a source to pay because the source has to come from the national government. Otherwise, the governor doesn't have the authority to make the payout. So there's a lot of gaslighting in this whole thing here. A governor that was not very upfront with the employees that she's in charge of, and a treatment of two important agencies that was really below par. I also fault the Attorney General. The Attorney General ought to be as conversant with these things as I am, and he should have been able to come forward and say, Governor, you can do this, you can do that, CCU, you could do this, you could do that, etc. Give them some guidance as to what the law required and didn't require them to do, what the law forbid, and be a proactive counselor instead of a forensic, what's the word I'm looking for here? Medical examiner, right? Coroner. To be the coroner, wait till everybody's dead, and then go and say, oh yeah, well this guy here, he had a case of bulima. If we had just given him 2 aspirins every day for a week, he'd still be alive. Why didn't you tell us that when he was still alive? Well, I'm telling you now. So it was really a sad performance by both the governor and the Attorney General on this whole double pay shenanigan. And of course, it cost us all a lot of money, which we really don't have. Going on in the same subject, courts versus the Wuhan virus. Next item on the card. Judiciary avoids furloughs, plans to cut work hours. The judiciary of Guam managed to reduce costs enough to avoid furloughs, at least for now. But work hour reductions may take place in July. Chief Justice Phil Carbolito sent a memo to employees this situation at the judiciary, breaking down the steps taken thus far as well as anticipated financial challenges. Even with implemented drastic cost savings measures, our outlook for fiscal 2021 at the start of the first quarter was a 1.3 million shortfall, with employees' furloughs projected in the third and fourth quarters. Mindful of the impact this financial shortfall could have on our mandated duties and employees' livelihoods, the court managers and I were determined to mitigate this impact. We realized significant savings in the first quarter by implementing several cost-cutting measures, such as not filling vacancies. But in doing so, our employees shouldered the load by working even harder to continue our critical justice services. The courts began fiscal 2021 with a decrease of $3.3 million from its original budget request. However, they may be forced to cut back on work hours across the board by this summer. The judiciary had submitted a $34.9 million budget request for fiscal 2021. The judiciary was able to delay implementing any furloughs or decreased work hours at least until the fourth quarter of this fiscal year. Barring unforeseen financial impacts, we should be able to go through the second and third quarters with no furloughs. However, the reality is that we're still facing a deficit in the fourth quarter. Our conservative projections indicate that at a minimum, we're looking at a 700,000 shortfall for the fourth quarter. He said, unfortunately, we may have to reduce work hours for all employees across the board, beginning in July of this year. Please be assured that we continue to give our best efforts towards forestalling any furloughs for as long as possible. While we hope that we can reduce the number of hours we need to cut or do away with furloughs altogether, I cannot guarantee at this point that we can complete the fiscal year with a full 40-hour work week and the balance the mandates require by the judiciary. So the Chief Justice and the judiciary are looking at this, and they're doing something other than walking around with earplugs, blindfolds, and crossed fingers, like the governor is. The governor has made no such plans whatsoever. The governor's plan is to stand outside with a hat like this, waiting for the money to come floating down from the federal government.
Well, it's not a collection basket.
No, it's not a collection basket. So, good for the courts making this plan in case that federal mana doesn't come through. It's good to see part of the government at least planning to do something. Okay, let me take a break for the seventh inning stretch, and let me see. I got Frenchie waiting in the on-deck circle here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Listen to The Point. Any speaker, anytime. Check us out on your FM radio at 93.3, 104.3 HD3, thepoint.gu, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and tune in. And announcing radio.com. Download the app and hear The Point. Get the latest news, sports, entertainment, and more. On demand. Your phone is digital. Your life is digital. And we are too. 93.3 The Point.
So here we are in Wrigley Field in Chicago, and Frenchie is doing something uncharacteristic. He showed up for the ball game, even though there's no game today. So, welcome to Tall Tales, Frenchie.
Yeah, I wanted to watch the referees brush those home base plates. So I was listening to your thing about the Chamorro Lacrosse and Jack Addick, and it reminded me that old TV show, I'm sure you remember, was called Mr. Head, the talking horse, and the lyrics was a horse is a horse, of course, a horse is a horse, unless his name is Mr. Head. And that would fit perfect, like unless his name is Jack Addick. It's like it is so inane, from the get-go. It's just amazing. And I wanted to touch also on what you and several of the callers yesterday rightly identified with the Chamorro language, pretending to want to keep the Chamorro language alive by teaching to young people, etc., but instead pushing for orthography on public buildings and everything. And basically what you have here, it's like one of your callers I very well put it, is a Trojan horse to advance pro-independence agenda. And you have a small elite, and they have created themselves, create an elitist minority within the academic environment where they don't have to work very hard for the money, but they are very adept at getting grants, subsidies, and so on. And they want us to believe that they are very benevolent in their search for advancing the Chamorro language, but in fact, it is not. It is not benevolent. It is very self-serving. It's a few self-appointed elite people, and I think they wouldn't mind if they were the only one being able to speak Chamorro. And it bothers them when white people speak Chamorro because we understand what they're saying, and it's an issue for them. And they appointed themselves as that little elite, and they're pretending to represent the whole Chamorro people on the island, which they are not. And they have access to a political few that are willing to bend the rules in their favor with a wink, wink, nod, nod, like Tello and other people. And it's not new, but, it's the same old songs and whistle, and it's kind of interesting. Personally, I compare it to what I've known. I speak 9 languages, but as you know, I'm Catalan of origin, and the Catalans have been trying to have independence for many, many years, many centuries. And my personal mausoleum is right next to the mausoleum of Pompeu Fabra, which is famous among Catalans for being a 19th century grammar specialist who did encyclopedic work to modernize the language and to facilitating uniting all the regional differences of the Catalan language from Andorra to the Balear Islands to Valencia, and even as far as Sardinia, Sicily, and Rhodes, where you have Catalan speakers, and of course on my side of the Pyrenees on the French side. And he did this, but he never dwelled into politics. He led that for other people that were better suited, and he did his work, his body of work is still very relevant today. He did a great job, but this is not what the people here are trying to do. They're trying to impose a narrow point of view, not trying to unite people. So finally, then I could not resist talking about the Cuomo sex scandal in New York. Cuomo is the golden boy of the Democratic Party in New York. And then the Democrats understanding that the repercussions of the scandal of the retirement homes and putting sick people to die there, which led to more deaths in New York than in any other states, it's becoming a huge scandal, and that people might finally put their fingers around it. Now they understand how dangerous that issue is. Then they are all willing to throw Cuomo under the bus. They're actually having a contest to see how far you can throw Cuomo under the bus between Hillary Clinton, the Attorney General, Pelosi, and everything. So it's kind of funny. They're really trying to divert the attention of the people of that huge scandal of mishandling the virus crisis, not taking the federal help that the president wanted to do because that was like, coming from Satan or something. And instead now they are pushed to basically point at a tree in order to hide the forest. It's quite interesting. And I don't think a lot of people see it, but it's basically what they're doing. And I wanted to also get your input on what you think about what showed in the paper on Friday about Moylan's purchasing the PDN. How is that going to impact the political local scene? It doesn't look like they're changing the crew, so I think we can continue to have some more left-wing options at the PDN, or maybe there might be a change.
Well, Moylan, of course, is a Republican, so there's a chance that he might be a conservative. I don't know exactly who's involved. He's the face of the buyout, but he may put together a hooey to finance it. There may be other people that aren't going to be as publicly recognized as him that will have a role in the paper.
Yeah.
But I think my first evaluation is that no matter what he does, it's got to be better than what we got.
That was my first take too, but since you have a much deeper understanding of local politics, I don't think we are ready to see Epoch Times articles instead of the usual leftist garbage we're getting from Reuters and other things, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, time will tell, but it's interesting. And do you think that means his namesake might run for governor?
I don't think so. I see Jim Moylan as perhaps somebody's lieutenant governor candidate. I don't see Jim as a candidate for governor. We had Kurt Moylan ran for governor at least once, maybe twice. Yeah. But he was unsuccessful. Kurt Moylan was a very skillful politician. Jim, not so much.
Yeah, he gets influenced very easily, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your input, and thank you for taking my call. And thanks to Rosé for the bank joke. Okay.
Don't do it, Frenchie. Don't do it.
Good talking to you, Frenchie. Yeah. When you were on the phone, I said I was going to go down to the bank and make a withdrawal, but I forgot my 45. No sense going to the bank without a gun, right? Okay, next item on the card is Rory versus BJ. This one goes back a little ways. It goes back to February, and it's entitled Port Authority Stands by Recent Personnel Decisions. The Port Authority stands by its recent personnel decisions, including its hiring practices from 2017 to the present, as well as decisions to reinstate a wrongfully terminated employee with full benefits, quote, as if he never left, close quote, said General Manager Rory Respicio during the Port's Board of Directors meeting on Thursday. Respicio gave the directors a status update on two Port personnel issues recently called into question. Respicio said that on January 27, Senator Nelson filed a complaint with the Civil Service Commission to investigate the hiring practices at the port, specifically asking about Port Authority employees, with criminal histories from 2017 to the present. Respicio said that during a post-audit hearing by the Civil Service Commission held on February 9, excuse me, he was there to present management's response that all hires since 2017 did not contradict any statutory prohibitions. He said that he also provided the CSC with all people hired during that time and restated his willingness to provide additional information if the commission wanted to research any employee's history. Respicio said that Frankie Rosalind is right here to help me if I need any help. Respicio also responded to a report from the public auditor released February 16, which opined that the port overpaid one of its wrongfully terminated employees as part of the reinstatement. Respicio said that his management team's position remains firm. He said that precedent exists, such as that the Department of Public Works reinstated a wrongfully terminated employee after 12 years. He got his back pay and salary increments, said Respicio, and we worked with the board's in-house counsel. Boy, it's a good thing they had Joseph McDonald there for about 6 weeks. They really got their money's worth out of that guy because everything that Rory did, in-house counsel said it was okay. Respicio said he asked the Attorney General for guidance on the matter and awaits a response. Other items discussed at the meeting was an agreement between the Port Police and Guam's Customs and Quarantine Agency to streamline process, etc. I don't need to go into this, but this is sort of an ongoing story where Nelson said that, Brown said that agency heads had too much discretion. And this all started when Rory hired Frankie Rosalind, who had been convicted of official misconduct as a part of the drug smuggling ring at the Department of Corrections. And Frankie was hired as a program coordinator 2 at the port, a pretty good job. And Rory said, well, he believes that, that you should let a man up once he's down. And then Frankie did everything right. And then, of course, the lieutenant governor was implicated because Frankie's girlfriend is the lieutenant governor's sister. So lieutenant governor is Frankie's quasi-brother-in-law. But the lieutenant governor, Josh Tenorio, came forward and set the record straight right away. He said, I didn't even know that Frankie had applied for that job. I didn't even find out until after the interviews. And I've explained the way the process works. Interview, selection. So after the interview would be the perfect time, if somebody wanted to jump in and throw his weight around a little bit.
And that was offered information.
Exactly, yeah. Kind of, I see the lion coming, so I'm going to pull his teeth out before I'm going to defang that lion before he gets here. So I think the major benefit of having Rory at the court, it makes the talk show host's job a lot easier, because just about every week there's something that Rory did that is worth talking about. Okay, I got an old one here that I didn't get a chance to finish when we were doing it. And this is when Bill 1 came before the legislature, and let's see, 11 senators disclosed that they or their family members had business licenses. And Talina Nelson, it says, wanted to recuse herself. Senators don't recuse themselves. They ask to be excused from voting because she had a business license. So it turned out that 11 senators had business licenses, and the purpose of Bill 1 was to waive the fee for business licenses for a year. Well, does that mean that bill could never pass? because everybody had a conflict of interest. And at the time we were talking about this, I said if benefiting from a general law in a personal manner would be a conflict requiring excuse from voting, then we could never raise taxes because everybody pays taxes. We could never lower taxes. Senators could never raise their salary, which we found out wasn't true back with the Juan Pat 10. So the ethical rules would pretty much say if you're going to benefit personally from it, you can't vote on it. I don't think that rule is properly written because there are situations like the ones I just mentioned. So I scouted around a little bit, and I got this from a North Carolina book of ethics, and this is what it said. The range of financial impact on board members can be thought of as a continuum based on the extent to which the effect is unique to the board member on one end of the spectrum or experienced by many or most citizens on the other end. If the effect on the board member is the same as the effect on a significant number of citizens, then it's fair to allow the individual to vote. The board member is affected as part of a larger group of citizens, and the vote can serve to represent that group. This is perhaps the most important factor. Even a significant financial effect may not be disqualifying if it is one that is universally or widely experienced by citizens in the jurisdiction. This will never happen, but some serious senator ought to take that ethical rule and incorporate this concept in it. Maybe Senator Nelson should be the one to do it, but of course if she did, she wouldn't show it to anybody.
It may or may not exist.
Yeah, the kind of the quantum theory of paperwork, the Schrodinger's cat theory. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs.
Make every day epic. The new Samsung Galaxy S21 is here. The Samsung Galaxy S21 offers the highest resolution of photos and videos on a smartphone, which makes it perfect for those TikTok dances or class projects. With a sleek new look, striking design, and a battery that goes all day and beyond. Samsung Galaxy S21 is epic in every way. Come into GTA today and experience the new Samsung Galaxy S21 and let GTA help you make every day epic. GTA.
AT&T's an extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit www.apo.com.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up here today with an article about Joe Biden, the President of the United States. This one ran in Town Hall, and it's entitled, "Our Military's SJW-Driven Abandonment of Warfighting is Going to Get Troops Killed." And it starts out, "It gives me no pleasure to say that I no longer recommend that young people join the military, and I'm not alone. The non-Blue Falcon veteran community is in full revolt against the conscious decision to decline embraced by our current military leadership. After failing to win a war in the last 20 years, and don't say Syria because the second president woke up in the Oval Office wondering how he got there. More of our troops were heading back into the hellscape for reasons no one has bothered to articulate. The military has decided to target an easier enemy, other Americans." See, the problem with me and the other vets who are disgusted by the brass's choice to focus on social justice warrior priorities instead of, successfully deterring or defeating America's enemies is that we actually listened to what we were taught when we were coming up. Most of us were trained by the heroes who put the shattered American military together after the Democrat war in Vietnam broke it. We learned about leadership, about putting mission first, but taking care of people always, and about objectives and how to obtain them. None of that's a thing anymore. So count us out from complicity with the degeneration of our proud institution into a giant gender studies struggle session. And that's a big deal. Do you know where the military gets a huge chunk of its recruits? Legacies. These are young troops who want to be like their father or grandfather or big brother or neighbor or other role model. I was the third generation commissioned officer in my family on both sides. Guess what? Right now, if one of my kids goes in, it's against my advice. And again, I'm not alone. I hear this over and over from other vets, and it makes me furious. Congratulations, Pentagon. This is all on you. You put 2 divisions behind wire in D.C. to protect against phantom insurrections by guys who dress like Vikings. And then you can't even feed the troops or house them. Gosh, if there was a great big 5-sided building full of generals just a couple miles away to square that idiot away. Oh, wait, there is. And now, though, we have not won a war in 2 decades. Our military has plenty of time to stop training and focus on purging the ranks of people who like the politicians the current administration opposes. I eagerly wait the introduction to the new 69 Delta MOS, political officer. A Zampolit for every battalion. Hell, why not every company? And don't patronize us with baloney about how this is just about rooting out all those secret extremists lurking in the ranks. That's right up there with sending the new second Louis down to the supply room to retrieve a box of grid squares. Yeah, we used to send guys down to the ocean to bring back some shoreline. How about you stop trying to expel these mystery extremists and start firing the incompetents all around you? Sadly, this trickle-down SJW foolishness is reaching what used to be the pointy end of the spear. Generals and colonels adopt it because if they don't, they'll get tossed out. If you invest 3 decades in the green machine, it must be awfully tempting to hold your tongue, to nail down that retirement and then get the hell out of the deluge. It's the company grades who buy this pap who are most disconcerting. 1 lieutenant, for you civilians, lieutenants are the wisest officers in the military, according to lieutenants, went on Twitter to inform me that some of other people who were actually alive and in the military last time America won a war, that when we Neanderthals were savoring, the military was awash in white supremacy. Could have fooled me. When I got off active duty the first time 30 years ago this May, I was stunned at how often race came back up in the civilian world. It almost never did when I was in the service, though in basic training, it would have been nice for some awesome power of my pallor to keep Drill Sergeant Whittlesey from dropping me for countless sets of 20. But hey, some 23-year-old assistant S2 who operates the coffee maker doubtless has better insights into stuff happening before he was born than those of us who were actually there. The only positive thing about my interaction with that guy was my relief in knowing that I was no longer the dumbest lieutenant in the history of the military. We had our imperfections and misadventures back in the day, but sure, if some idiot had done something bigoted to another soldier, we would have slammed him. The only thing that mattered when a new soldier showed up was whether or not he was squared away. But not now. No, winning battles is hard, but internal snipe hunts are easy and fun. Why focus on external warfare when the career payoff for witch hunting within the organization is so much bigger? Check out this new Navy pledge. I pledge to advocate for and acknowledge all lived experiences and intersectional identities of every sailor in the Navy.
Is that for real?
Really. This is not Babylon Bee. I pledge to engage in ongoing self-reflection, education, and knowledge sharing to better myself and my communities. I pledge to be an example in establishing healthy, inclusive, and team-oriented environments. I pledge to constructively share all my experiences and information gained from activities above to inform the development of Navy-wide reforms. The Navy. Okay, let me check and see who I've got here in the... I would expect, who else? Another Joe. It's that time of the day. It's another Joe who has just showed up at Churchill Downs, right? Another Joe?
Hey, Bob. So, with regards to all this partisan, feelings we're all feeling, and we're seeing it at the CPAC. The sentiment is shared even amongst those who are not conservatives. If you listen to Free Talk on this very same station at nighttime, you got a bunch of libertarians. So they claim, if you think it was impossible to find another Ray Gibson, you have at least between 2 to 4 of them on the same program at Free Talk, which is smart Alex. But but truthful, they're honest with their feelings, and they're basically suggesting that all these claims of the Democrats are ridiculous. Because if you want to have an insurrection, why wouldn't you bring a handgun? Why wouldn't? And you would expect more shooting. And there's a bunch of other issues they had with the idea that it was an actual attempt to take over. And so, but they're also smart enough to vote towards the conservative Republicans. That's the only thing is you have to be willing to take the sarcasm as well as give it. So it's the sense is that if these leaders have the opportunity, Uncle Bob, that they will convert over to artificial intelligence as far as conducting warfare as much as possible. Then they wouldn't have to worry about all these touchy-feely stuff. That would be the excuse that, there's too much touchy-feely stuff.
Well, the way things are going now, with the new president and the new leadership at the Department of Defense, we don't have artificial intelligence. We've got artificial ignorance.
The irony, Uncle Bob, is I will point to the Star Wars movies, using of robots, androids, and I think there's an actual movement to creating artificial human beings, so to speak. And I think they're definitely going to attempt it, and we'll probably be seeing it if we survive the next decade or two. We might actually be seeing it. So anyway, I'll just keep listening to Bob, and thanks for your time.
Good talking to you, another Joe. Okay, so here we are again. We'll be back tomorrow at 1600 for more Tall Tales. See you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Dose for everyone. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Biden says every adult in the U.S. will have access to the coronavirus vaccine before summer starts, as Johnson & Johnson strikes a deal with Merck to help produce more doses of their just-approved vaccine.
The more people who get vaccinated, the faster we're going to overcome this virus. and get back to our loved ones, get our economy back on track, and start to move back to normal.
But the president said normal might not be until this time next year. He's urged Americans to continue socially distancing and mask wearing. But at least 2 states have had enough of the mandates.
It is now time to open Texas 100%.
Governor Greg Abbott lifting business restrictions and mask mandates next week. Mississippi has ended mask-wearing mandates as well. U.S. Capitol Police have been placed on alert for another possible assault on the U.S. Capitol building tomorrow.
U.S. Capitol Police have announced they're beefing up staffing after getting intelligence about this coming March 4th. The information warning of a militia plot to breach the Capitol. 2 sources tell Fox 5 in D.C. that an intel bulletin specifically mentions the group the Three Percenters. Members of that group are accused in the Capitol riot back in January.
Fox's Jill Nato in Washington. About the January 6th riot, FBI Director Christopher Wray telling the Senate Intelligence Committee yesterday.
That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
Director Wray insisting the FBI shared its intelligence prior to the riot with law enforcement. Nearly 6 members of the Michigan National Guard, who'd been providing security at the Capitol following the January attack, have been sickened after eating undercooked food. Michigan's congressional delegation demanding immediate action. America is listening to Fox